So in 2017, God really began to break my heart for New York City. Just looking at statistics and seeing 9 million people within the city and only 4% claim to be evangelical. So just thinking about that and the cultural diversity and the impact that that city has on the globe, and how through the gospel Christ can change lives, and through lives being changed there that could have a global impact. God really began to burden my heart to consider putting together a mission trip to New York City.
You know, I love the city and I love the people there, I love the culture, and so it was a great opportunity for me to invest in the people of New York and share the gospel, but also still enjoy my favorite city, and just being able to take a group of people and let them experience it for the first time was exciting for me as well.
Well, I have always wanted to go on a mission trip, and I always wanted to go to New York City, and I got the opportunity to do both, so I'm like, why not?
My biggest thing was when I heard about it, it was such a new place, somewhere I'd never been, and somewhere I'd never heard of a mission trip going there. So for me, when I heard about it, my heart was just like, this is a new experience, a new place, a new way to spread the gospel that you'll be learning about. So that's kind of what prompted me to go.
I decided to go to the Mission New York trip last year because really, it was something I never did before. It was not only going to New York, but also just experiencing, just going out there, spreading the word. It really is a different kind of feeling.
Well, I've been to other mission trips, but I wanted to go to New York, something different, and experience it there, and it was a great experience.
My most memorable moment was when we would, at night, all the ladies would just stay up and talking and fellowshipping. I really didn't know many people on this trip before I was able to go on this mission trip from the church. And so just that sweet time of fellowship, of just staying up and getting to know the other ladies that belong to this church, and knowing their stories and hearing their testimonies. And now it's, every time we see each other, it's like family, like, hey, and we can't wait to see each other again and hang out.
My favorite moment from the trip was actually Gage. Gage loved just all the croissants. Any place you could go to, he would just eat every single one.
The number one takeaway, in my opinion, from the trip is the camaraderie that was built amongst our group. It's just amazing to see how we went up there, pretty much 11 people not knowing each other, but then left there 11 people that was a family. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, almost the entire group got together and had lunch, and just to see everyone still caring for each other and wanting to be involved with each other is very encouraging. How God brought our group together with such unity, it was very encouraging.
Probably for me, my favorite thing was the subway, because it was just a different form of transportation. You saw so many different people. But my favorite moment was whenever we were out evangelizing to people, just trying to start conversations, and we met this really good group of 2 people. It was a girl and a guy, and I can't remember their names. But we spoke to them, and they actually engaged in our conversation. Like, we just spoke, they had a drink that we were really interested in at one of the coffee shops around there, and I asked them about it, and it engaged in a conversation that lasted a good 10 minutes. And that was probably one of the most fulfilling parts of that trip, was to get to speak with those people.
We did several different types of outreach. We did prayer walking, which was interesting because prayer walking with one of the members of that church, Restoration Church, is the church that we partner with, and it's in a very hostile area of New York. It's in Greenwich Village, which is pretty hostile to the gospel, and so we prayer walked that whole area, and just being able to learn about the dynamics of the area and the people of the area, and how no church has really been able to survive in that area was hard to fathom.
Just having the experience of just people looking at you in a different kind of light, it's interesting because you're not only helping others, but they don't really see that often.
So Restoration Church actually meets inside of a Catholic church, St. Veronica's Church, and so with that we did some outreach with Jorge, who actually leases that church.
So we did some beautification inside of his building, which just totally blew him away. I think we gave a day and a half of hard labor, painting columns and just rolling up our sleeves and getting to work. And he was just taken back at the strength and the unity of the church.
And then we also were able to go to Washington Square Park, which is sort of like the French Quarter type. I guess you would consider it kind of like New Orleans in a sense. It's where a lot of people gather and there's acrobats going on and singing and dancing. So it brings in a huge combination of different types of people, but that's where you can actually see the people of New York.
At the Washington State Park, we got to witness to people, and I kind of am aggressive. I want to just go up to somebody and say, oh, talk about church and all, but I was taught how to just do conversation with them and just gradually, nonchalantly maybe mention it. And that helped me in my witnessing. In fact, one of the girls from where I work is coming to church now.
And it really challenged me to get out of my comfort zone and actually having to go up to people and make conversations. And I'm pretty outgoing, but when you don't know people and they tend to be very hostile about what do you come and try to sell me or talk to me about, it was a little bit more difficult. But in the end, it was rewarding. And I think just being able to see not only myself being able to do it, but we got in pairs and in groups and encouraging others in the group. Okay, you know, now it's your turn to go introduce yourself and start a conversation. Everyone did it, and it was out of probably everybody's comfort zone, but we did it, and we were able to just talk about it after, and it just opened our eyes to a lot.
A couple of things I learned from the trip was just learning to humble myself more, because you experience a lot of different things going out to New York. It's definitely a place where people show what they have by whether it be clothing or the job that they have, and just going out there and just helping, just for the joy of it. And it's really a game changer.
It changed me, it humbled me as a person, especially seeing Ground Zero when you see the Twin Towers, to think about all those people who never got to know Christ, and that would humble me. And that, more than anything, I came out of that trip a more humble person.
For me, it really kind of pushed me into different way of thinking. There are so many different walls that I felt kind of came down while I was there. It was a new atmosphere of people, a very different way of evangelism. You had to think differently, you had to speak differently. You couldn't just walk up to someone like you would here. You really had to think on that person's level and kind of bring yourself to kind of their way of thinking instead of just going up, do you know Jesus? You had to genuinely get to know the person.
God really challenged me and changed me, and really through a simple truth. He reminded me of one simple truth, and that is the things that seem impossible with man are possible with God. I remember distinctly on March 29th, our last morning there, just weeping over the lostness and the brokenness that we had just observed throughout that week, and just crying out to God, thinking that this is an impossible mission, like who can reach these people in New York? And through all that, he brought to mind my stepdad. And my stepdad is someone, if I'm honest, in my unbelief, I never thought would come to accept Christ. But through all that, weeping in that moment over the brokenness in New York City, God showed me how mighty he is to save, because he laid my stepdad on my heart, and through a phone conversation we had that morning, he accepted Christ while I was in New York. So I guess God had to send me to New York to see him come to Christ. But it was just a simple truth that he showed me in that moment, that what you believe to be impossible is possible to me if you're willing to surrender and be obedient.
What I would tell somebody going on a trip is definitely keep an open mind, because there's so many different things. You can't just close yourself off to something. You have to try it, you gotta at least experience it, and definitely go out your way as much as possible.
Don't be afraid to go out your comfort zone. I did, and I enjoyed it. I want to go back.
And it really blesses you more, to me, than it does to other people.
If anybody's thinking about coming to New York, it's a short-term mission trip, and so it doesn't take a whole lot of time. If you do work at a job, we just go for 5 days, and you're not gonna regret it. It changes you. Every mission trip I've gone on has changed you in different ways, but this mission trip, knowing we're going to a place that's still in the United States, and how far they are from the gospel is sobering. And so I would encourage everyone to pray about it, and if the Lord has put it on your heart to go, all you can do is go.